Hello, welcome back once again to Elevator Pitch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That is our official new
Our theme song.
theme song. As always, I am Hazel, with me as usual.
Altair.
Only the two of us
Yes.
this time.
Because boys are not allowed to watch The Sopranos with us.
Exactly. No, well, Andres hasn't seen the first season. It would be quite a lot asking him to watch the first season now. I'm sure he wouldn't do it
That's what I
anyway.
was going to say. I'm sure we could ask, but he wouldn't do it. So.
Yeah, exactly. I forgot. Maybe we should mention for anyone who's tuning in for the first time. So basically, we break down, because we've both never seen The Sopranos. That was the basis of this. And the whole setup of Elevator Pitch is watching stuff that one or several of us have never seen. And so we've never seen The Sopranos. And so for season 1, we basically watch a couple of episodes at a time and discuss them every so often. And so now we're starting with season 2, episodes 1 through 3. So it's been a while. And by the way, if you're watching us on our video, it is Christmas while we're recording. We set up our Christmas tree yesterday.
That's Tamara. Who
Exactly,
you see
we
behind
named her
Hazel.
Tamara. So this dates this video, and I'm in my fluffy onesie
that I'm very jealous of. I really like if you start sharing this podcast and more people start listening to this podcast and we get sponsors and we get famous and then we get a shit ton of money, then maybe I can buy myself a onesie.
Hashtag buy that Venezuelan a onesie.
Exactly, a onesie for Altair.
Exactly.
Let's make that hashtag a trending topic.
Exactly.
And yeah.
And then maybe one day you'll be able to afford a onesie.
Exactly. So don't do it for the podcast. No, do it for me and my cold knees.
Exactly. So, as I said, it's been a while, and we finished on season 1, obviously, on our first season of the podcast, and now we're back, and we started watching season 2 of The Sopranos. And so I guess my question is, what did you think of the first 3 episodes?
Yeah, I think they were interesting. I think that there are a few things that I really liked. I'm just shutting off my laptop so that it doesn't make any sounds. No, I think they were interesting. I have a few notes on maybe some technical things like sound design in some episodes that I really liked. Yeah, I think this season aired in 2001 or something like that. I know.
2000?
Yeah, I think so.
Because it started in 1999.
Exactly. Yeah, I think in the 2000s. Yeah, exactly. The first this season aired in the 2000s. So I think there are some things that visually haven't aged as well.
Yeah.
But if you can remove your head from that, I think it's quite interesting. The new relationships that we're seeing in this season, I think is really interesting. The character of the daughter, how she has turned into a proper obnoxious teenager.
And the sister, Janice.
The sister is a very interesting character. That I don't really like her as a person. Not that I don't think it's a good character. I think it's the character. It's something that the show needs, but the character as a person is a little bit. Yeah, but maybe it's just because I sympathize with Tony. You know.
Yeah. And what does that say with you?
No, but I guess
a violent mob boss.
That killed a man with his own hands in the previous season.
Exactly. No, yeah, I'm with you there. She is. I think it's because she's so obviously sponging off him for the money and clearly only wants because it was like also me trying to obviously spoiler alert. I mean at this point, if
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
but I found like it took me a while to kind of work out what she was really planning with the mother, and that's very clear. Like we'll discuss that when we come to the episodes, but it's clear that she's sort of interested in her mother's inheritance and money, and something obviously happened in Seattle, or she ran out of money, and now she's back trying to wean her way back in. So I think it's that characteristic of the character you probably don't like.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean I don't have I have siblings, but I don't have like a very close relationship with any of them. But for me, what bothers me, I think, also the most is how Tony kind of like it is kind of dismissive, but at the end, kind of does what she wants.
Yeah.
It bothers me a little bit that she's has this power to play him,
And Carmela.
And Carmela, exactly. And it's like, why can't you see? Well, I guess it's because it's Rebel.
Well, the
script says
I mean, it's a frustrating thing that Tony knows what she's like, and he still seems to not be able to. I think that's what I found fascinating, like particularly with I think it's episode 3 where Meadow gets caught having this party at her grandmother's house, Livia's house, that's standing empty because Tony's trying to sell it, and it's because it's interesting how Tony has no problem exerting pressure or influence or punishment, I guess, when it comes to his mob dealings. But then when it comes to his own daughter, they're completely clueless as to what to do, and she completely plays them as well.
Yeah, I think that's quite interesting because, it must be like if any mobster is listening to this and wants to share their
I'm sure that's all they do. I'm sure all they do is listen to wannabe filmmakers.
I mean, they probably like the Sopranos, and they
maybe
want
they
to
just googled Sopranos.
Exactly. No, but I think it's really interesting to see that how like this like people who are in crime and everything in this kind of life, how they handle their internal issues, because obviously their family is like a weak spot, and maybe they also maybe their family life is like just an escape of all that violence and all that rage that they usually portray to others. So maybe that is why, I don't know, if any shrinks are also listening to this, we can have a discussion. But I think it was very interesting, and I also find it frustrating when the daughter played them. I was like, what can you do? But yeah, I think it's interesting to see the two sides of Tony and his life and how he handles his affairs.
Let's begin the analysis.
Dun, 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 dun.
So obviously we get sort of a recap, I guess, at the beginning of episode 1 called Guy Walks into a Psychiatrist's Office. And I looked that up. Because I did not know that's what this episode was called.
Okay. I thought you meant like you didn't know what a guy goes into a psychiatrist's office means. It's like, what is there to get? A guy?
It's a sentence.
You're the native speaker.
You should know this.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, so, we kind of get a recap of... Well, I guess it's sort of like... Because it's been a year since the end of last season, so you kind of get a recap of everything that's been happening, I guess. So Livia's still in hospital, so Tony's mother, his uncle Junior's in prison now. This was also like the difficulty of like remembering what, because it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while since we saw it.
So it was like remembering everything that happened. Yes, and That's right. And Dr. Melfi had to go on the run because of Tony. And so she's still in, like, she's living out of a motel now and doing her therapy sessions there, and has cut Tony off. She's not taking him as a patient anymore. And it's sort of like business as usual, like business is going well. Tony's having affairs still.
Exactly.
Carmela's still... What I found interesting with this, and I don't know, maybe this was a theme in the first season, I just didn't catch on to it, but I started to realise, like, it, particularly in that first opener, because you basically have just short, quick scenes of everyone, what they've been doing, sort of illustrating what's been going on. And you see Carmela twice, but both times she's just like in the kitchen cooking, and she looks very bored, I guess, or very resigned. And that was sort of something I noticed, was that so far, I don't know, maybe this will change, but so far I've never seen her out of the house, outside of the house. And it's like a lot of the time, most of her scenes take place in the kitchen.
I think in the first season there is one episode in which they go to a restaurant. I think that's the one time.
Well, she goes to church, I think.
And she goes to church. But yeah, I guess that. But always, like, I don't think we've seen who she really is by herself. I think she's always either with Tony at this restaurant or with other people at the church.
Yeah. Playing this role, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a very nice observation from a master in filmmaking.
Thank you. That's the only one I made this episode. Genuinely, I found it really hard. Like, actually, I have to say, I think I got pulled into these episodes more quickly than I did in the first season, I think. Because, like, the first season, maybe it was because I was still getting to know this world and these characters and who everyone was, and also understanding how the mob works, and what's following the plot. But I found it a lot easier this time around. Actually, I found myself getting quite sucked into the story and forgetting to take notes.
Yeah, like, I didn't take that much notes either. Yeah, I'm guessing in the first season you're still trying to figure it out, who these characters are,
what their motivation
is. And also, I think in the first season, since it is like a very interesting take on the mobster world, you're kind of, that's how I felt, at least. Like, your brain is still, okay, they're making a joke in a mobster themed story. So my brain was trying kind of like to reconcile these two very different styles, because for me, one of my notes is that it's always surprising to me how funny the show can be, and these little jokes that they have, and these little situations that turn, like, very, very funny to me, at least.
Yeah. For those of us with a dark sense of humor.
Exactly. So I think it's, I think your brain is still adjusting to that in the first season, but in the second season, I think you already have an understanding of what the world is. And you're just, okay, what's going to happen next?
Yeah.
The thing.
Yeah. And on the note of Carmela, I also know, I think this is a good demonstration of where their marriage is at the moment, that Tony comes home late at night. And at first, like, he gets into bed, and then at first they're facing each other, like Carmela and Tony, and then eventually Carmela turns over and turns her back to him, and then he turns his back towards her.
Yep.
So, that marriage.
No, yeah, that marriage. Yeah, I guess it's, I don't know. It's, sorry. Yeah, that's the bit when he's coming back from, like, having sex with another woman. Yeah. So I think it's also that she knows what he's been doing. So it's like, I don't want to face this. So I'm just gonna turn around.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's very interesting, their relationship, because I think it's a marriage. I mean, she says it in one of the episodes that they haven't had sex
In like months.
in months. So I think I'm guessing that is what marriage is like, but the fact that
We
no,
wouldn't
the
know.
lack of sex.
wouldn't
We don't
know.
know. We're not even close.
We're not even married and we're not having sex.
Exactly. Maybe we'll be the other way around for us. When we finally get married, that's when we're gonna start
Exactly.
having
Then
sex.
it'd be the opposite for us.
Yeah. No, but no, I don't mean only the lack of sex, but maybe that's what marriage is. That I think eventually you grow a little bit apart. But I find that it's interesting how they're still a team. You know, they still discussing, okay, what are we going to do to punish Meadow? So there's still, I think it's more like a partnership than a marriage, maybe, what they have by
Yeah.
this time.
There's not a lot of intimacy, but they're still sort
Exactly.
of partners in crime in a way.
Exactly, but only like in family life, because I don't like Carmela doesn't have any saying in the business side. But I think it's really interesting how maybe that's the reason why they're still together. I mean, of course, a lot of other social reasons and blah blah blah. But I think it's interesting that it's not like they hate each other. It's not like they are screaming at each other all the time. I hate you and you're a blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But they're okay, we're a team. How are we gonna solve this matter inside the family, which is the little enterprise that they have?
Yeah. Although I guess I'd find it interesting whether Carmela's just resigned herself to that and decided, okay, we've still got kids to raise, we've still got this stuff to take care of, or whether there's a lot of suppressed rage because she does know that he's sleeping around and all that, so
yeah, no, I think that there must be a lot of that.
Because I think there was a lot of that in the first season. She's suspicious and jealous of Dr. Melfi and who she is and what her relationship with Tony is, and she knows and turns a blind eye towards his. She has that relationship with the priest. Relationship. There's nothing physical going on, but I've gone blank now.
No, there's nothing physical going on,
but she's
there's
obviously using him to complain. To find that kind of intimacy. I think she found that intimacy with the priest that her relationship with Tony was lacking. So I find it interesting to see how her role in the marriage evolves, I guess, if she's just sort of, oh well, this is my life now, or if eventually that will come up to the surface. And
yeah, I think eventually it probably will, because I think there's a lot of that, definitely, of suppressed rage, and she's not really happy. I don't think she's happy.
No.
But what I mean is that even though all that rage and all that resentment that she probably feels towards Tony for that lack of intimacy and everything, I think despite that she managed just to say, okay, let's work together in this thing. So I think, like I said, probably that's what all marriages do.
Yeah. Because do you think that final scene? Because the last scene is Tony comes home. And it's this very quiet scene, like they hardly talk to each other. And then Carmela like warms up some pasta for him, and then they just sit down at a table and kind of, she checks the post, he eats, and I wondered whether that was sort of an illustration of how they don't have anything in common anymore, or they don't have anything to talk about, or if it's more, this is like this illustration of how well they know each other, I guess, because like if you know someone and you feel comfortable enough, you can have these moments where you're like together and you don't have to speak and you just get about your business.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think for me it was like an awkward moment, like, okay, this is all they are for each other. Okay,
she cooks for him.
She cooked for him. He eats. He gives her this room. I think it's that, but I think it's also they're used to it. This is just the way it is, and I don't know if they're happy with it, but they are adjusted to that. So I think
Yeah.
it's like, okay, this is all that is left from a marriage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I keep saying I think it's interesting that despite all of that, it's like, okay, we have to deal with these domestic things.
Yeah.
Because maybe because that's the only thing that they have in common. They don't really
Well,
even have
yeah.
anything else. So maybe it's also like a way of staying together when everything else is kind of like pulling them apart.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I guess she's sort of like the only person he can really rely on in a way, even though he treats her so, well, like badly. She still doesn't leave, and she still sticks around, and she still, because she's going on at him about, have you found another therapist yet? She's still worried about his panic attacks and him dealing with his mother.
Yeah.
And how to deal with his sister and everything. So she's sort of like, at the moment, she seems like she's not gonna, the only one who wouldn't leave in a way.
Yeah.
And who doesn't seem to have like ulterior motives against him.
Yeah, no, I think yeah, I think I mean I think I think she wouldn't leave him because it's too comfortable, the kind
That's
of
the
life
thing, right?
that he offers her, right? I mean,
Yeah.
of course you don't have like this intimacy or any kind of, maybe there's no emotional connection left between the two of them, but at the end of the day it's like it's a marriage and it's a structure. So
Yeah.
okay, we have these kids, we have built a certain life. What would she do? And that's what I mean, like we don't really know who she is. I mean, does she, I think she plays some sort of sport. I think like we saw her like playing tennis or something
Could be. Yeah.
last season, but we don't really see who Carmela is outside Tony's spectrum or universe. So I'm curious as to, okay, if she actually leaves Tony, and maybe she will, what would she do? No, I don't think that she's useless or anything. It's just that I don't know her enough to know, okay, these are the choices that she has. Have we even met her family?
We saw her parents.
That's true. But outside that, I think it's like it's just like a big question mark.
Yeah. Because, I do remember, was it episode 5, I think, or episode 4, where she does have the priest round and talks to him and says that, I think, something like she made a pact with the devil, basically, to have this comfortable life.
Exactly.
And it's not really what she thought it was going to be like. So yeah, I don't know. I find it interesting that she met that you think that she still would rather prefer to be comfortable, like that's still outweighing everything else.
I think at this point of the season, she's starting to doubt it, but I don't think she's questioning. Yeah, I think she's like starting to really feel and experience that the price of that comfortable life that she has. So I think she's starting to confront a little bit more up close that price that she had to give up, or she had to give for this life. But I don't think she's ready to leave that yet. I think it must be quite difficult, especially if you have kids, especially if your husband is a mobster.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So yeah, I think she's starting to confront that a little bit more, but I don't think she's quite ready to
take any action.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, and then the next big upheaval, I guess, is then his sister, really, because so he's basically completely cut himself off from his mother after what he believes was her plotting to have him killed. And she's now in a hospital, I guess, because she did or did not have a stroke. That's also the question.
Yeah.
And so for him, like, he keeps saying, like, she's dead to me. That's his mantra whenever she comes up, and they're not allowed to mention her in the house and everything. And then Janice comes in, who basically has been living in Seattle, I think, for like the past 20 years, hasn't been pitching in to look after their mother, and now is showing up because she wants to. But obviously she has her own
ulterior motives.
Exactly. So she basically wants to take Livia home, and he wants to sell the house. But she, he has all the money basically. And then they have this family reunion, I guess, at the house.
Yeah, like a little party that they have with other Sopranos.
Exactly. And again, that was, I think, again, this interesting contrast that he has his argument with Janice over their mother, and and he goes into the house. Carmela's in the house. He's raging. He's like, I'm gonna kick her out and everything. And Carmela's like, calm down, go enjoy the party, And then I find it interesting around Carmela and his family. They're the ones who seem to really push his buttons, and he can't seem to calm down very easily. But then he goes outside, and a lot of his mobster buddies are like around the grill cooking, and they're just talking and laughing and insulting each other for fun and stuff. And you have this moment where it's like Tony immediately kind of calms down and just kind of smiles and enjoys the moment. So I found that contrast really interesting.
Yeah, but I think that's the moment where he also, well, I interpreted that way, that he kind of like has like a mini anxiety thing, or the scare of an anxiety thing.
Things slow down for a moment.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's interesting what you say, how what should be like in comparison, no, in comparison to how dangerous a mobster's life is. How the home is the major stressor.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Because I think that's also it's something domestic, right? That triggers his anxiety attack in the first one.
Well, because he has another one in the car, doesn't he? What was he? What happened before that?
I don't remember what was happening. Yeah, he was driving and he hits something.
Yeah, he passes out and.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but I think it's interesting what you say, that is like all of this domestic thing that trigger him, but maybe it's also. Yeah, I mean it goes to tell how stressful life for anyone is, because of course, like I think.
How stressful the American dream can
exactly. No, because I think I mean maybe he was expecting, or he expects all like the trouble and the betrayal and all the cunning and all the backstabbing from his mobster world.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the way it works. But maybe the fact that he also has to deal with that inside his family is like, okay, he's not safe anywhere. Like life is hard at home and that
he obviously seems to have an easier time dealing with, because we'll see in the next is it the next episode or episode 3, this old mobster gets released from prison, Richie, and he wants to, and Tony's basically taken over his territory, let's say. So he sort of poses a threat, but like Tony never seems to be that worried about it or that put out about it, and he always shows his authority towards Richie, but I think it's like he has a much easier time when it comes to like his business to deal with it, but within his family, he doesn't seem to be able to know when it comes to his sister or Meadow or his mother. He doesn't really seem to know how to deal with them or deal with that problem. Because I also think the menace, like for me as a viewer, throughout the episodes, I grew more worried about Janice and what she was planning or she was going to do than it was about Richie, say, or whatever was going on. So I feel like you can feel the threat more directly coming from within his own family than from the business itself.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think it's that. No, I think like I said, like in the mobster world, those are the things that you are supposed to expect.
Yeah.
But you're definitely not supposed to expect your mother trying to murder you.
Exactly. Yeah, because that's his whole process in season 1, isn't it? Like trying to uncouple himself from this idea that's, oh, well, it's my mother and I have to take care of her, and and then coming to realize just how manipulative she is.
Yeah, no, and I think you have a very good point there when you say that me too. I was more interested in finding out what was Janice's intention, what was going to be her move. Because I think with the mobster world, like you can see that this guy is not happy, that with the fact that he's taking off his turf, so he's definitely going to do something. It's just a matter of finding out what.
Yeah, exactly.
Or when.
And you feel like somehow you get the sense Tony will be able to deal with it.
Exactly. Because I think it's also the fact that with business it's just business, and even when they kill someone, it's just business, it's not personal.
Yeah.
But with the family, everything is personal because there's no business. So I
It's
get
all personal.
It's all personal. So you probably, like, if you're a mobster, you can probably just kill anyone who stands in your way and that's it. But with family, you cannot really, or you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
And especially because I think, despite Tony being the way he is, I think he cares for his kids, for example, and even for Carmela, I think, even for Janice,
I'm sure.
And I think it's a lot more difficult to handle things when you're so emotionally involved.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's the scary part. Okay. And that's the biggest weakness. No?
Yeah.
If my sister betrays me, how will I
do
respond
I deal
to
with
that?
it?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Imagine, I find it very interesting that they use the whole thing of him trying to this rumor that they're spreading. I don't remember if it is true. I think it is. I don't remember that he almost suffocated his mother, and that they in the mobster world they use that as he's crazy. He's lost his mind. He's you cannot trust him, because I think that's quite interesting. The fact that if you kill whoever,
you try and kill your own mother, then
but if you kill your own mother, that's not. So that's why the power that family has, I guess. So I think it's quite interesting, the double standards.
the hypocrisy.
In the mobster world.
Yeah.
But again, if any mobsters are listening, you can tell us.
I mean, actually, I've started reading this book about women in the Italian mafia.
Oh, nice.
Who rose up to basically become the leaders of these families. And when they raided this guy's house, one of these leading mobsters, mafioso, they found all these rules, and then there's like 10 rules for what, you can't, I think one of them was you can't go drinking or go to clubs in case you get drunk and then reveal something.
Okay.
But then there was also like a lot about you have to respect your wife. You shouldn't look at another member's wife.
Okay.
And so on. So it's funnily enough, like there are these sort of standards that they hold themselves by when it comes to their partners or their families, I guess.
Yeah, I think it like a very interesting example of that, what you're mentioning, is that I think it's episode 2 when this guy, Christopher, I think is his name.
His nephew.
His nephew, he hits his girlfriend, and then the girlfriend's uncle
Richie,
come and say like, hey, if you're gonna lay your hands on her, give her your last name. It was like, oh my god.
I know, you were doing so well, Richie. And I was like, oh wow, okay, you're standing up for I can't remember her name.
Yeah, I get her
because Christopher goes like in a bar with the two of them, and she's really pissed off because he's also brought these other two henchmen that he's running like stocks with.
Yeah.
And then they get into a fight, and then he slaps her and she slaps him, and then walks out. And then, like her uncle Richie then comes in and says, don't you lay your hands on her. And you're like, oh, okay, like he's standing up for
feminist.
her.
There you go. Hashtag me too. Hashtag feminism. Hashtag stop domestic violence. And then...
And if you're going to do that, give her your last name.
Give her your last name.
It's like, as long as you're married, you can hit her. Like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like at the end, I think it's a very macho thing. Even when you said that of okay, don't look at other members' wife.
Yeah.
More than for the women, I think it's just so that you don't steal other guys' girl.
Well, exactly.
It's like,
so you don't get into trouble with the other guy.
Yeah, so it's more it's from the macho point of view and the patriarchy. But no, I think it's very interesting. I think everyone has double standards.
But this is the thing, though. I think it's interesting that he seems to be able to deal with this macho world, but all of these people in his family he has problems with are women, like his sister, his daughter, his mother. So it's like it doesn't seem these women seem to be a greater threat, I think, to his like order or his livelihoods than all these other men could be.
Yeah, I think it's also because, I mean, maybe he doesn't know how to handle women.
Well, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I grew up probably in this men's world, or how to handle this thing among men, and with men it's also more violent. You can just kill them. You can just...
It's just showing dominance.
Exactly. With women, I'm guessing it's more difficult to know how. I mean, at least if you're not a bastard who hits women just because they breathe.
Yeah.
Which I don't like. Up until now, he hasn't shown that side.
No.
So I'm guessing it's like, okay, how do I handle this? How do I? Because it's a completely different MO. I would say how to handle not only women but also women within your family.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Because also with Dr. Melfi, he doesn't know how to get back into her good graces. Because like he calls her in the motel where she's staying, and he says like, oh, you're safe now. You can go back to your office. But that immediately frightens her because she's like, how did you get this number? How do you know where I am? And she just refuses to take him back because she blames him for the death of one of her patients who committed suicide because she couldn't reach her.
Yeah.
So it's also that, like, how does he deal with her? You know, he thought, oh, I'll just go up to her and tell her she's safe and just ask to take me back. But it's more complicated than that.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, and when we see, because when she said this thing about I lost one of my patients because I wasn't available for her, like when I heard that, I was like, okay, but I think eventually you won't be able to be always there for patients.
Yeah.
You know, like sometimes,
because that's something then her therapist points out.
Exactly. So that's what I found very interesting, because I thought that, okay, well, what if you were asleep? What if you
were on holiday?
Oh, you were, exactly. And then her psychiatrist mentions that. And he also gives us a little bit more of context, because he said she had your number. She knew when to call you and where you were.
She was in contact with you.
She was in contact with you. So obviously she's using this patient
as an excuse.
but it wasn't his fault. Like, I think like that's something also that like everyone is responsible for their own life.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's just an excuse. I think something that probably she just tells herself to try to rationalize not take him back.
Well, I think it's also she must be carrying some guilt. She obviously carries some guilt for this, like guilt around for this patient dying. But I mean, like you said, everyone's responsible for their own actions because she took him on as a patient and she knew who he was and what life he led. So in that sense, maybe she's also trying to run away from that guilt she feels that she's partly responsible for it. For getting involved with him in the first place.
Yeah, too.
Because then after Tony passes out, he tries to find another therapist. But this time, this therapist, like, again, he's like, I know who you are. I'm not taking any more patients. So he's like very strictly saying, nah, I'm not dealing with you because I know who you are.
Yeah.
So she's also sort of because she was also kind of fascinated with Tony.
Yeah,
she took this fascination with him. So
yeah.
It's not all on him.
No, exactly, and I think that's also I think when I say that she tells herself that is a little bit to also not admit that fascination and that curiosity
exactly,
and the fact that she probably still wants to treat him. How, which I think it's something that we see. I think it's in the third episode when we see him having an anxiety attack, and then like he crashes with a truck, and it's like would you see him like dead practically?
Yeah, he's like been thrown out the windshield.
Exactly, and then you see her driving past, which I thought. That's convenient. A little bit Deus Ex Machina, don't you think? But then
I know, I was like, wow, that's convenient. And then it turns out to be a dream.
A dream, which I think it's also like a very smart thing that the writers did, because I think they set up the whole first real anxiety attack that he has, that he hits like a pole or something.
Yes.
That is a setup for this scene to work.
Yeah.
And to trick you into believing, oh my God, this is really happening.
Yeah.
So I think that was very, very smart what they did about like setting you up so that you buy it, and then it's like, oh fuck, it's just a dream. Tony is alive. Okay,
oh God.
But I think that dream is just her subconscious telling her or trying to tell her that okay, you really want to treat this guy.
Yeah.
You should treat this guy again. Which I'm guessing she eventually does. Because
I'm guessing so.
Because
that seems where it's leading to.
Exactly. So yeah, I think it's quite interesting. Also, this episode when she's having dinner with her friends at the same restaurant as Tony. That reveals a little bit more of her as a woman, as a person, outside the office and outside her relationship with.
Yeah, I was
Tony.
really interested by that because then she seems like she's trying to, like you say, like trying to do small talk or something with him, like be nicer around him, even though the last time they saw each other, she was very
mean,
aggressive. Yeah.
I also I at the beginning I thought it was like okay, she feels guilty, so she's trying to make nice, and to say okay, it's nothing personal either. It's just that I simply cannot treat you anymore.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, like Tony just gives her the cold shoulder, and
in front of his mobster buddies.
Exactly. And I thought it was also very interesting when the guys start talking about this very sexist conversation about how she had lips that seemed to be very good at giving oral sex. I worded it nicely. That's not how the mobsters said it.
Yeah.
and like they're trying to get like a confirmation from Tony.
Yeah, they all
Like-
think that Melfi's like an ex or something.
Exactly, and he's like, but so you can confirm it, right? She gives a good blowjob, right? Come on, right? And then at the beginning he's like, fuck off, then leave me alone.
Yeah.
And then he is like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Even though that hasn't happened. But of course, it's a little bit of him covering his tracks, but I think it's also him trying to look like, oh, yeah, I fucked her. Or,
Yeah,
"Oh,
yeah,
she
yeah.
was mine or
Yeah.
whatever. I really like the joke that one of the mobsters says, he's talking about how every man remembers every blowjob. I think exactly because Tony says that he doesn't remember
Oh, yeah.
whether she was good or not. And then this mobster says something like, I remember every blowjob that I've had. I don't know, Marco, do you remember your first blowjob? Yeah. How did the other dude like it or something?
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, oh my god.
Okay.
That was funny.
Masculinity.
Toxic masculinity. So no, I think I think it's very entertaining show, and I think it's like very interesting the different characters that we're getting introduced to.
Yeah, definitely. I guess the only other thing that happens in this episode worth mentioning is Christopher, who's now like it become this like boss at a investment firm, and they're basically like running this pump and dump scam.
Yep. What is that?
That's a good question. Explainer. I don't know. I think because it's basically like selling stocks you know are bad.
Ah, okay.
Like convincing people that those stocks are worth more than they actually are and getting rid of them.
Something similar to what the Leonardo DiCaprio's character does in The Wolf of Wall Street.
Maybe. It's been a while since I watched that film.
Yeah, because I think he works at Wall Street, but then something happens, and then he goes to work for this very little thing that they also sell stocks, and I think that's what they do. They sell like stocks that are less penny worth. I don't know, and
Worthless,
then and then he tries to sell them for like a lot more money. So I think that okay.
Yeah. And then but he's obviously like really bored with the job. Because then he goes out, and then he has these other two guys working for him, and then they overhear one of the other stockbrokers like giving genuine advice to someone on the phone, and then they like beat the shit out of him
in the middle of the office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god. So that's I think a storyline I guess that's being set up for later, because Christopher hasn't had that much screen time yet.
Exactly. I think it's also something that I found very interesting was this. I think it's in episode 2 they introduced this kind of protest in front of a construction site that I think used to be Junior's, but now is Tony's.
Okay.
And there's like a lot of colored, non-white workers who are demanding to be hired.
Yeah.
And I think it's very interesting because like you kind of get the idea that okay, the guy who owns the construction site or that is in charge of it calls Tony to deal with the protesters, and then so you think okay, this is very straightforward, but then they reveal that he's also kind of been working with the leader of the
reverend
protests.
who's been stoking these protests.
Exactly. So I think that was also very, very interesting to see how corrupt everything is.
Everyone, even a man of God.
Exactly. I really like that storyline because I really didn't see it coming. Because he even Tony goes to visit the reverend, and he's not there, but it's the dad. His father is there. So I thought, oh, he's looking for this guy to intimidate him or whatever. That's how it is written
Yeah,
for you to
exactly,
believe
yeah.
that. And then at the end of the episode, they tell you that they reveal that they've been also in cahoots.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like,
Oh my God.
what an
Yeah.
asshole. I think that's actually is that when he has then that anxiety attack maybe after he, because I think he receives a call after he talks to the reverend, and then he's in a rush. I think that might be the
I mean, we
moment.
can go into episode 2,
Yeah.
called "Do Not Resuscitate."
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, and I mean, if we're talking about the Reverend, like I found it quite interesting again that because he goes to see he goes looking for the Reverend and then he finds his father, and he actually like ends up just sitting down and talking with him, and then he says, "Oh, you know what? I'll come back later. I'll come and see your son another time." And then by the end of the episode, like the father has died. And Tony comes by and actually gives him his condolences to the Reverend and said, "Yeah, I actually really liked your father." So again, it seems like Tony has quite an affinity towards like father figures. It seems like, because he also seems to still really admire his own father. I think it's just women in his life that he has problems with.
Yeah.
But it was like interesting to see that, I guess, softer side of Tony. It seems like he really admires the Reverend's father. I actually just realised we forgot something from the first episode, which I'm guessing we'll play in later, was that this guy, Pussy, returns.
Big pussy.
The Big Pussy, yeah, that's his actual name. Yeah, because like Tony, because like last season, they found out that there was an informant, like an FBI informant, and they were trying to work out who it was, and they thought it was Pussy.
Yeah.
Because this dirty cop told them.
Yep.
And then I think this was the guy you were meant to think that they took him out. They kind of left it open whether they had him killed or not. And then they found out it was actually someone else. And now Pussy's back, and he's spent his time in Puerto Rico, did he say?
Yeah, I think it was Puerto Rico. He has a tan.
Yeah, he had a bad back, so he went to Puerto Rico.
Exactly, that was the thing.
And met a girl there.
Yeah.
So he's like trying to convince Tony that it wasn't him.
Yeah,
that he wants
he's
back
trustworthy.
in. Exactly, yeah. So that's just something I remembered now that we forgot to mention.
Yeah.
Because it kind of becomes relevant in this episode that it turns out he is actually an informant. So who knows what will happen?
Yeah.
I have to admit, I find it really hard to tell all of his lackeys apart.
Yeah, me too. It's also like they have like a type, no? Like big,
exactly, yeah. White, male.
Yeah. With like this New York, what to me sounds like a New Yorker accent.
I mean, I guess
like
it's an Italian-American accent.
Italian-American accent, yeah. But they're mostly based in New York.
Exactly. Well, New Jersey, isn't it?
They in the story they're in New Jersey, but I think like for me, from pop culture, like all the Italo-Americans are based in New York.
Yeah. The let's get back to the Reverend.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you start off with like these protests outside the construction site, and then does he get Christopher involved, or Christopher gets it? No, like who does he get involved? Like Junior's second, like Junior's aide, Junior's.
Someone's hungry.
I worried that was gonna happen. Yeah, no, like he visits. He goes to talk to Junior's second in command, I guess.
Yeah.
Like to basically like get him to break up the protests, like beat up the protesters. And they do that, but then also again these two guys that beat up the stock worker.
That's true. Yeah. This is the guy who he's making fun of for being overweight.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're in the car together, and then he sees these
Like
two guys coming along, and he's like, "Nah, I'm not dealing with you."
yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, and exactly. Then you have like Junior back in the picture now. Like he's in like Tony. In the first episode, Tony finds out that Junior's gonna be possibly released from prison, so he goes to talk to Junior. And Junior's still convinced that Livia, so Tony's mother, wasn't manipulating, didn't try to have Tony killed, and Tony's like mocking him for still being manipulated by her. But yeah, like, and then Junior manages to get released from prison, but
On
he has to be
like house
house
arrest
arrest with an ankle
bracelet.
which I found that scene really funny.
When he
in with the judge, like they're discussing
yeah.
like Junior being like, sounds like Nazi Germany to me. And the judge is like, you clearly don't need a history lesson.
History lesson. Yeah,
because like Junior's lawyer, like his attorney, like tries to talk the judge out of giving Junior house arrest, because like, oh, it's not flight risk and whatever, but the judge isn't having it. Like he knows that they're trying to manipulate him, so he's like, you're gonna wear an ankle bracelet.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then that's right, and then he goes to like his because at the end then he breaks his hip or something.
Exactly.
Like he falls in the shower. And Tony comes round.
But I think exactly. But I think I don't remember when it was. There's like this scene where he is like at a doctor's office.
That's right.
And he gets.
I'm sorry, like these storylines.
Yeah. But because there are two moments. There's one moment in which he's like in a waiting room, and he's with another dude.
Oh, that's right.
And then this other guy comes in, and they do like an exchange.
Like he folds this bag, like this envelope of money into like this magazine and leaves it for them. Yeah.
And then there's a second time where he's actually in the doctor's office, like in the examination room.
Episode, yeah.
Okay, then we won't talk about it.
Oh no, actually no, you're right. Like he talks to Tony there, doesn't he? He meets Tony at his doctor's office.
So he basically uses it. Gives you also like a very nice insight on how this man practically control anything.
Yeah, right.
And the fact that doctors are letting their offices be used to conduct this underworld crime.
Right? Yeah, because I was wondering about the doctor, because in the next episode, then he's in the doctor's office and Richie comes around, and then he just says to the doctor like, "Oh, can you give us a minute?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And then he explains.
I don't have any other patients to see.
Exactly. Yeah, and he just lets them talk. Yeah, because it's like using like doctor's confidentiality.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So I mean, yeah, it kind of shows it doesn't matter what the authorities try to do. It's like they're always going to find a workaround.
Exactly. Yeah.
That was. Yeah.
Well,
there you go.
Mobsters, man.
Yeah, but and then he also mentions when he's talking to Tony, he mentions, I think, is it the owner of like the nursing home that Livia used to be in.
Yeah.
That he's like he was basically like spreading gossip that Junior and Livia were
like
together,
having something, like a relationship.
Exactly, and then I guess Tony takes care of it. Because then they find that this guy's car abandoned next to the river. But yeah, and then at the end, Junior falls in the shower, and then they call Tony, and it's actually kind of sort of sweet moment, really.
Yeah. I mean, it shows you that Tony, because I mean, like sometimes I also wonder whether he really just wants to eventually just take Junior out of the picture, because so far he's saying, no, I'm taking care of your business, and that's what he's been saying everyone, like whatever was it, like anyone that goes out of jail is like anything that was yours before will still be yours. Like, I'm just keeping it. So sometimes I do wonder, okay, is that really your intention, or is your intention to eventually take over the entire operation and become the el padrino, the godfather? But I think this is very sweet, the fact that they call Tony, because he's, I guess, maybe one of the only. Well, I mean, I'm guessing they called it him because his family. So it's not the same thing to call like one of the other mobsters who are not family. Maybe Junior doesn't want to be seen in that state.
That's true.
So it's easier to just be that vulnerable with a family member. But it's also like the fact that he goes and then he offers to carry him and to take him to the hospital.
Because Junior also wants Tony to make peace with his mother as well. So he also, I mean, it seems like he does actually care about their relationship, I guess.
Yeah. Or that's what it seems.
Exactly. Who knows? All will be revealed. And then the other big storyline in this episode is like Janice with the mum. So she's still like visiting Livia in this hospital, I guess. I'm guessing it's a hospital. And it doesn't go great. It doesn't go well. Like Livia's just as, she complains just as much and moans at Janice just as much, and tries to portray herself as the victim.
Yeah.
Just so you see the same behavior that she implements with Tony, doing it with Janice, and Janice as well also hasn't been around for 20 years or something like that.
Yeah, I think something that I don't know if it will come up eventually, something related to Janice, is the fact that people think whenever they see her, like Livia and Richie, they ask, how was California? And then she says, no, it was Seattle. So I don't know if that's gonna come up eventually.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just like a funny thing, but maybe it isn't.
Well, exactly. I mean, I'd like to know, I guess, that, and then I also would like to know why she came back now. How she's able to make it out there for 20 years without really being part of the family, I guess, and then now she suddenly needs the money, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's proving harder because Janice wants to try and persuade Tony from not selling their mother's house, and that she would take care of her. But this is obviously proving a bit more difficult. Because I was sort of curious, like, what their relationship would be between Janice and her mother. If it would be any different than the relationship that Tony has with her. But that's obviously not the case.
Yeah.
And this is the interesting part, isn't it? I think it's one of the nurses talks to Janice about a DNR, which is basically a do not resuscitate order. And that gets Janice thinking. And she starts talking to Tony about a DNR basically for their mother. And then I think it's like at the dinner table, is it, is it talking? Because they have an argument at the dinner table because Tony's one rule is not to mention their mother.
The mom. Yeah, I think that one is in the kitchen. I think she comes in and starts talking. Hey, the nurses were mentioning something about DNR. And he was like, "What do I need that for?" And then eventually, I think he buys into the thing.
Because also there's some tension there because he found the for sale sign in the back of her car in the previous episode. So he's already suspicious. He knows she's up to no good.
Yeah.
But then Meadow and what's the son's name? I can't remember.
Little Tony.
Little Tony. Let's call him Little Tony. So because also Meadow got her driver's license now.
Yes.
So then they're kind of visiting their grandmother without, I think, Tony really knowing about it. And so they go to the hospital, but then Meadow leaves.
Yes.
Presumably to go to this party, I'm guessing.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, that's
That's
what
not
I,
really.
that was my interpretation.
I
Anyway.
didn't see it that way, but it makes
Okay,
sense.
okay. But anyway, Meadow leaves and little Tony goes to see Livia, and I thought this was also quite clever because throughout the episode, like he's constantly talking about DNA.
Yeah, he's like working on a DNA project.
Yeah, like he's doing DNA or something in biology, and he keeps talking about it at the dinner table. And then when he's with Livia in the room, he says like, "What's a DNR?" And he thinks it's something in relation to DNA. But you can see on not Janice's, Livia's face, like, oh, okay,
that's what she's after.
Yeah, that's what sort of Janice is planning.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of everything summed up in episode 2, I guess.
Yeah. I think that's the highlights.
Yeah.
Of I'm guessing this maybe is worth mentioning that she when Tony confronts her about the signs. Is this in episode 2 and episode 3?
I think it's episode 2 because like you find because they have this outside grill.
Yeah.
And he sees the sign in the back of Janice's car.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I think it's right at the beginning of episode 2 that he confronts her about it when he's washing the drive.
Exactly. That then she comes up and says that is because she has a friend.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Who's a realtor, and that she could get like a smaller commission, I guess.
Yeah, I was also thinking like, what's going on there? Because that seems like a scam.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, that's her excuse anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think she eventually convinces him to give the listing
to her friend. Yeah.
Yeah, so manipulation.
But this is sort of the area now where I feel like the threat's coming from, not even like the FBI or something.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
I think that, of course he's dealing with some business related shit, but I think, definitely the biggest threat is it's Janice for me, at least at this point.
But I also feel like I don't know, because I kept thinking like the danger of Janice is that she might unleash his mother again. That his mother might get more influence again or something, that she might be able to do more.
Okay. Yeah, like the thread I so far I've interpreted it as like somehow Janice taking a lot of money from Tony somehow and like scamming him into design, taking care of mom, so give me shit tons of money.
Yeah.
Although they also reveal that she's might be after her mother's money.
Yeah.
So it would be
isn't there that moment where because she also gets tips from Meadow on how to get closer to Livia, and Meadow mentions these singers,
music,
these Italian singers, and so Janice goes and gets an album of them, and Livia wakes up to their music, and they have this moment where like they hold hands and seem to be bonding, and then Livia mentions something later on about her money and that she hid it somewhere, I think, but she can't remember where it is. So that was becoming clearer to me what Janice was after. I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
That's episode 2 for
That's
you.
episode 2 in a flash, in a nutshell.
Exactly. So we're on to episode 3. Toodle fucking ooh.
Toodle fucking ooh.
I'm still gonna use that in my life now. So we start this episode, as we mentioned before. They have real issues with Meadow this episode because basically Tony shows up to his mother's house that was standing empty, waiting to be sold. And there's like loads of police outside and teenagers getting taken out. And it turns out one of the cops called Tony, like he has a connection with him, because one of the teenagers there is Meadow.
Yeah.
And it turns out she threw this party with like really hard drugs as well with her friends, like Special K, I think, and ecstasy or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
I was like, when you say Special K, it's like, I don't know if that's the name of a friend. Do you think it stands for Special Christina?
maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm making that up. Maybe I'm
No, I do
confused.
think probably Special K is like
Something like that.
Let's say like Special.
Correct
heroine?
me, drug users, if I'm wrong. Sorry.
Special K. I mean, when you say Special K, I can only think of the cereal.
The cereal. And now you're saying it. Yes, that's true.
But let's see. I mean, no, the ketamine.
Ketamine,
Yeah.
I'm not totally insane.
Yeah. Exactly. It's also like a synonym for ketamine.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's in trouble, or we think she's in trouble, but then Carmela and Tony have this conversation in bed where it's basically shown that they don't really know what to do now.
Yeah.
Because, and Carmela illustrates it like everything that we do also has like negative effects on us, like if we take away a driver's license, we become her chauffeurs, and
which I think is really interesting. I had never seen that from like the parents' point of view. How whatever it is that you do, that you punish your kids with, it ends up being also a punishment for you.
Yeah, because it was also like if we give her. If we ground her, we have to be her prison guards and things like that.
Yeah. Which is, don't have kids. That's the solution.
The PSA, guys, don't have kids. Even a mobster can't control them.
Exactly. So how could you?
Yeah, exactly.
Peasant, no,
because it's also quite telling. Because then Tony says we better not let her know that.
That we don't know.
Because then we're fucked. Basically,
Yeah.
She can't know we're powerless. Basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, that was the point where I kind of thought, so this guy can deal with all this organized crime, but he's completely lost when it comes to his teenage daughter.
Yeah.
Who also, I really started to dislike her in this episode.
Yeah, I think she's so manipulative. I mean, when she, I think, God, no, it's just like the fact that it wasn't my fault. I only mentioned the party to these two people, and then they were the ones.
And then all these other people showed up with the drugs.
That, and I think that the scene that for me was like almost infuriating was when she was cooking with her friend. And she was making this careless mess.
Yeah, they were saying like, they should just
kitchen.
treat us like adults. Like we were practically adults. Like they should let us do whatever. And then they're spilling like the milk and making a total mess in the kitchen.
Yeah. It was. I was like,
because then basically they're trying to come up with a way to. They still don't really know how to punish her, and then she suggests her own punishment, which is basically just taking away her credit card.
Yeah.
But then she keeps asking them for money, and they always give it to her.
It's like, for me, it's like so, incredible how she plays them.
I know, right? They just lie over. Yeah,
it's like
down.
Yeah, I've been thinking, and I feel very bad about it, and I think you should take out my Discovery card. And they were like, okay.
And then she's like, but I'm gonna need $10 for gas. You know? And he just hands it over to her. It's like, oh my god. Because then you see her smirking when she's walking away as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when they're cooking, she's talking with this friend of hers, and they're saying exactly that. That it's like they don't really know how to punish. They're not really going to punish them.
Exactly. Yeah.
But do you think? Because then at the end of the episode, because she never seems to really show like remorse or take responsibility for what happened. But then at the end, Tony meets a locksmith to change the locks on the house, on his mother's house, and then he finds Meadow like inside scrubbing the floor because it's like a total mess. Do you think that's because of Janice?
Yeah, like at the beginning it wasn't clear for me. Like, okay, because before, when they were discussing how to punish Meadow, then Janice got involved and started
Yeah,
with
Janice
this.
goes round to the house and sees what a mess they made of it.
Exactly. So before she saw the house, she was like all like, "Oh, you're just upset because she's a strong, independent woman making her own
yeah, that's
choices,
right, yeah.
blah blah blah." And that's when she has like this discussion with Carmela. And then when she finally goes to the house and sees that there's puke and disgustingness everywhere. And then she does get upset and she goes up to Carmela and Tony and say
they have
that
like a fight, a screaming match, yeah.
And you see that Meadow is like on the stairs, like listening to it. Like I was reading like a little bit about the episodes before we started recording the podcast, and apparently like one of the, I don't know if it was like an interpretation of anything, but apparently what she hears of how her actions are impacting or are affecting Janice and the house where her grandmother is going to live, then that is what makes her go to the house and clean it. But I didn't read it that way. I think like when we saw it, I thought, okay, but did Janice made her go there? Why is she there? It wasn't very clear for me.
I mean, or otherwise, I don't know if you could have the interpretation because Carmela then kind of defends Meadow or defends her, like their parenting, and she basically says to Janice, like, "You're not her parent.
Yeah.
Don't get involved. This is our job. You know, you don't have anything to say about this."
Yeah.
So I don't know whether she sort of feels bad because now her parents are.
Yeah. For me,
defending
it
her.
wasn't that clear what the motivation behind her going to scrub the house was.
Well, it seemed like Tony also didn't know.
Exactly. I think Tony also, like, for me it was like, but why is he doing that?
Yeah, exactly, right.
So
Maybe
yeah.
we'll find out.
Yeah, maybe exactly.
Yeah. So teenagers, am I right?
Teenagers. I'm glad I'm not one anymore.
Oh boy. Yeah, and I guess the next thing is that Janet, like, exactly, because Janice is still planning on moving their mother back into the house, and then she goes and visits her in the hospital, and that's when Livia confronts Janice about the DNR. Which there is an amusing moment because then Livia's constantly, berating her and stuff because she's like, I know what you're planning, basically, and then Janice kind of looks to this warning, I think, this little symbol about, is it fire or falling down?
Yeah, or like the escape route. Or
escape
stairways.
And it's basically like this little black stick man going up the stairs, and like Janice superimposes Livia's face onto it, like,
and falling.
Exactly, it's falling down the stairs, so you know exactly what she's thinking, or I guess what she was planning. I guess. But yeah, that doesn't seem to be going according to Janice's plans.
Yeah. And also, I think, in this episode, we see this Richie guy who just came out of prison.
Yeah, exactly. That's the next one. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're saying episode 2.
We're talking about episode 3.
Okay, exactly. This is in episode 3. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. Like, I think this guy comes out of prison and is.
So he's been in prison for 10 years, and he used to run. Was it with you? No, like him and his brother used to have territory. I guess.
Yeah, exactly. One of those territories is like a pizza parlor shop. I don't know how you call it.
A sandwich place or something. A restaurant.
Yeah, I think it was like pizza. Because Italian. And so I think he's a little bit. At the beginning we see him that he talks to Tony and talks about the whole hitting his niece and goes and tries to intimidate Christopher.
Well, first of all, she drops him off at this restaurant, and he goes to talk to the owner, Beansy, because I'm not sure if Richie like used to gave him money to open up the place or something, I think. And so he wants payments from him now. But Beansy refuses because now he's working with Tony. And so you already see Richie like lashing out, like knocking him
with
over the head with a coffee maker.
Yeah.
And beating him up.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you're already kind of like, okay, this is a rogue element that Tony has to deal with now.
Exactly. And then he goes to has a meeting with Tony, and this whole thing with Christopher, like, hey, you're gonna lay your hands on her, give her your last name, and then he wants to, I guess, mention the whole pizza thing to Tony, but then Tony kind of like just
gets
blows
up and
him
walks
off.
Away, yeah.
He's like, oh, I don't have time, and then he tells him the excuse that he's not talking about business in that kind of public place. So then they meet at a mall, and he says like, hey, that is my thing, my territory, I want it back. And then he's like, hey, I'm keeping it for you in the meantime while the FBI
it's like a little bit complicated. You'll get it back in time.
Exactly.
But then Richie says like, it's mine and it's not yours to give me. So they still can't really agree on it.
Yeah. And then he eventually goes and visits Junior again in this doctor's office.
Oh, yeah, exactly, yeah.
And he basically he goes and tells him, hey, this is what is happening. And he basically says, like, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it, like Richie to Junior.
Yeah, so he kind of pledges his loyalty to Junior.
Exactly. What if you want, like, I think he says, like, if you want me to accept the way things work nowadays, I will do that. But otherwise, tell me what to do and I'll do it. And then it's like Junior laughing, and we don't know what he tells him.
Well, exactly. So that's another plot unfolding.
Exactly.
And then he goes after this owner again, this Beansy.
Yeah, exactly, because Tony told him to leave him alone.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he goes after him with a gun first of all. And the owner Beansy like runs away, managed to get away, and then he's going back to his car thinking, okay, he's gone.
Yeah, I'm safe.
Yeah.
But you're not.
He's not, because then lights appear and turns out Richie's like in his car and he drives towards him and kind of crushes him against the car.
Yeah.
And then runs him over, like, oh god. Which I already thought he was dead.
Me too, and I'm guessing Richie did too.
But maybe. You think? Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
it was definitely attempted murder.
Yeah, I would have thought that he did, because I also thought that but maybe a mobster knows when he has killed someone and when not. So
he knows what kills.
If
and what doesn't
any
kill.
Mobsters are listening again, let us know.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But then it turns out not Richie, Beansy, survived and is in hospital, but he like broke his back.
Yeah.
And he may not walk again. And Tony comes, because then this is kind of interesting seeing Tony seems to be in quite this tight spot now, because I don't know if it's his wife and mother that were also visiting Beansy at the time, and then Tony comes in to visit him, and then his wife obviously seems to think that Tony's responsible because are you gonna let him get away with this? Like, so much for your friend or whatever.
Yeah.
And Tony doesn't seem to really know how to deal with Richie, I think, yet.
Yeah. I'm guessing because also Richie used to have like some sort of seniority before.
Exactly,
so
and they keep mentioning his brother, Jackie, I think, who's dead now.
Yeah, so I'm guessing it must be a little bit complicated how to deal with someone who used to be an authority figure for you, but now you're in this position of power over them. How much is respect, but how much do you have to reassert your own authority now?
Yeah.
So I'm guessing it's kind of like a dilemma that he's
yeah.
facing.
Yeah, but anyway, he does meet Richie again in the mall, and
Yeah, it gives him the
warns
the
him
warning
basically.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. He warns him and says, "Stay away from Beansy. Like I'm in charge. You know, you respect me, and so on and so on."
Yeah, exactly. It's I'm the boss now, so
Yeah,
you
exactly.
have to deal with it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, Richie smiles. So
yeah,
you kind of
exactly.
think
So
he's
it's like
obviously not.
okay, that's when I thought okay, he's definitely Junior definitely told him to do something.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I thought.
But then you also have this interesting connection you find out because then Richie visits Tony's mother with a bunch of flowers while Janice is there, and then you find out Richie and Janice used to be in a relationship.
Yeah, because we saw him before, like doing some yoga at the same place.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Where Janice was doing some yoga, but I thought, okay, it's like a crazy, like he likes her for some reason. But then when he goes and visits Livia, then okay, so they were an item.
Exactly, in their younger years.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's a bit of a dangerous connection, isn't it?
Yeah.
These two rogue elements coming together.
Probably will come up in the season.
Yep.
Yeah.
But lots to look forward to.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a bloody a bloody season.
Yeah.
No, I think I'm excited. Like I said, I think in terms of like, I think in terms of writing is very nice. I think I'm still getting used to some of the visuals. Some of like the montage, I guess. I think for me, like some cuts are a little bit awkward.
Okay.
But I mean the cinematography and stuff. I mean it's very Padrino, very Godfather-like.
Yeah.
So that's nice. But for me, in terms of rhythm, sometimes it's either too slow or things happen too fast.
Okay, that's interesting because that's the thing. Because I think season 1 for me was a bit. So at times I found a bit slow. And then these again, like I've only watched 3 episodes, but these 3 episodes I found myself being drawn into the story a lot more quickly than I was before. Actually,
no, because I think in terms of like the writing is really nice. I mean it more in terms of more in terms of montage. I think some of the cuts between, especially in the action scenes, for me are kind of awkward. Like for example, when Richie is beating.
Oh
Exactly. Like there are some cuts there. There are like okay, you could have cut a little bit later because it's you see okay, you see the actor waiting to be punched and so I think in terms of like editing, who am I to criticize The Sopranos?
I mean, to be fair, I guess this was HBO's first big show, so I guess you're still not used to. I mean, we'd have to look up sort of the production budget.
Yeah.
But considering, I mean, it's only sort of the last 10 years that shows have got these enormous budgets now.
Yeah. No, I know it's also probably like in the 2000s that was like cutting edge.
Yeah.
I think that's what I mean. That sometimes when you look now in 2022, it's kind of like that's a little bit cringy.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, The Sopranos is like one of the best shows.
Who are we?
So are we
to criticize?
To criticize it and have a podcast to talk about it.
Exactly.
But here we are, so
we're doing it anyway.
So that goes to tell you can do anything you want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot of storylines I'm looking forward to seeing unfold. Mainly sort of I think more the family storylines. I guess they're more easy to connect to. Yeah, I also find.
I haven't been a mobster yet. So.
Well, exactly. It's. I mean, yeah, that's the thing. I think unless you're quite familiar with how the mob works, it's sort of trying to understand all the time what's going on, who's who, what's doing what they're talking about. Yeah. Yeah. So the family stuff seems more of a threat at the moment.
No, definitely. I think that in any case. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's sort of our, I guess, review / discussion.
Yeah, on
of the opening episodes of season 2.
Watch episodes 4, 5, and 6 to join us the next time that we will be
We
discussing.
should have said that at the beginning, shouldn't we? You should probably hopefully have watched episodes 1 to 3 to listen to this. But it's your own if you want to listen to it.
Exactly.
Who am I?
Remember, we have that campaign for that onesie.
Exactly. Exactly. We're gonna exactly.
So I hope you liked this discussion. I hope you join us not only for the next binge
but
week.
Also, if you haven't listened to the other episodes, you can go back anytime and listen to them.
Exactly. Next time, Mr. Hagedorn will be back. We're gonna be discussing another film. We're gonna go back to the original concept of this podcast.
Exactly. We're gonna have a new theme.
We're gonna have a new theme, new movie. Hopefully, lots of laughs. And I guess until next week, everyone. Stay safe. Mm-hmm. Merry Christmas.
Well, it's only once Christmas is over, it's only 12 months until the next one.
Exactly. No. Maybe you are listening to this.
Who knows? You could be listening to this in the far-flung future in 2 years' time around Christmas.
Exactly. Anyway, even if it is in the middle of your life, Merry Christmas whenever Christmas is.
Happy Christmas.
And thank you so much for listening. Mm-hmm. As always, I'm Altair.
I am Hazel.
And until next week.
That was elevator pitch.
Yeah, that was elevator pitch. Exactly. Remember to follow us on Instagram.
That's good. That's a
elevator
good
pitch _pod. Mm-hmm. We are trying to post lots of nice content for you.
That's our aim this season.
So remember, recommend this podcast to all of your friends so that I can get my onesie.
Yeah, please think about our onesie.
Thank you so much. And I guess,
till next time.
Bye. Bye.
If you like this episode, why not hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss another episode? And if that's still not enough, you can follow us on Instagram at elevatorpitch_pod to stay up to date with all the latest news.